Hey everyone, Ivy League Gaming here, and today we're playing Raid Shadow Legends, and today I want to talk to you about something that might be a little bit controversial of a topic for some people, but I think once I explain it, and you have a little bit of understanding of my side of this argument, you might agree with me too. So, today we're going to talk about Hydra Clan Boss. And we're going to talk about how to build your first team, your end game team, your early game team, whatever. We're going to give a good overview. And we're also going to explain why, well, Hydra is not about RNG. RNG is not an issue with Hydra if you prepare for it properly. So that's the topic for today. I do want to give a shout here, guys, because I have teamed up with HH Gaming. I am working on some articles for their website. We are revamping the Hydra section. So if you guys know, on my YouTube channel, I have a whole series on the Hydra heads, breaking down each head individually. I've kind of redone that in a written guide form, and that will be here on the HH website, hellhades.com. I'm really happy. Thank you guys for thinking of me for a Hydra content creator here. We are going to have some fun. I'm going to be writing more articles for their site. You'll be seeing some stuff coming. And, well, this video is kind of going to go along with one of the topics of an article that'll be here on the website. So, Hydra, guys, right? Hydra. So, it's so overwhelming for most people, right? It is super overwhelming. It's a lot, depending on the difficulty. It's a lot to consider, isn't it? It's a lot to consider. And one of the first big things that I think is really important, which I never do, I have to admit, is honestly just take the time, read through the skills, understand the heads, understand what you have to go against. And the reason I'm on my YouTube right here is because I did it, like I mentioned, I did a series about every head, guys, every head. Head of Blight, Torment, Mischief, blah, blah, blah. And again, articles are going to be on hellhades.com. If they're not already, they'll be there soon. Stay tuned for an update there. I'll probably try to do a proper video to mention the update as well for the website. And maybe I'll ask the guys to join me. We'll see. But I want to mention this because I feel like these videos, they're not too long, they're short, they're like all under 20 minutes, and they explain the heads, the mechanics, and how to counteract them. Just like the articles I have written as well, they kind of go along with it. The articles might even do a better job because I had the time to, I actually wrote down a lot of details, and it's stuff that you could easily go back to. But understand the heads first. Before you want to build your first team, you're finally ready to take it seriously, or you just want to figure out how to start somewhere. Understand each head and what you're going to need to counteract them. That is the biggest thing here, guys. I'm guilty of just going in and copying another clan member's team, another person's team, but that's how we learn, right? And honestly, no shame in that. No shame in that. Start somewhere. If you see a clan member with the same team as you, take a minute, look at their team, ask them what their stats are, ask them what their sets are. Maybe if you're in an active clan like I am, we share our builds, we share our stats, we all chat about this stuff because we're all trying to grow together. So, I mean, this is one of the biggest things, is just taking the time to understand the boss. And there's a couple strategies to go along with that, which we're going to discuss. But first, I also, on the note of figuring out, like, who do I use? What do I use? Where do I start? There's a bunch of things I want to mention, so I'm going to actually kind of showcase the reference tool of hellhades.com as well for that, because it works out really great for kind of looking up all the information you need, and I use it literally all the time. So we're actually going to go here. Stages tool is really helpful. So one of the first questions you might have when you're building your Hydra team is, how fast do I need to be? How much accuracy do I need? How much resistance do I need? How hard do they hit? Who has the most HP? Who has the most defense? You might want to be looking at that sort of things because it determines who you're going to counteract. So let's see, it's Hydra Rotation 4 right now. Let's take a look at hard. And this is where you want to look. So we have, like, let's see, you want to figure out how fast do I need to be if I want to build a team for hard. So it looks like our fastest head is the Head of Mischief. That is always the case, no matter the difficulty. This, for the sake of hard, it's 220. So you want to be 221 or higher. I think for normal, it's 210. So you want to be 211 or higher, etc. Simple enough. Try to make your champions faster than all of the heads. That way you're at least for sure going once, even if you have some disruptions in your comp. But do keep in mind that if you let the Head of Mischief actually steal your buffs, it also affects your turn meter, and that can throw off the whole rotation. So trying to get your people above, like, honestly, I just try to get above 250 speed when it comes to Brutal and Nightmare Clan Boss, especially Nightmare Clan Boss. I'm trying to get above 250 speed because he's 251. But you're also going to try to throw in other buffs and debuffs that'll help affect that as well, but we'll get to that. So take a look here, look at what you're fighting, look at the rotation. Keep in mind that the affinities do change, but again, when it comes to the heads and the strategy of it not being RNG, we'll get to that topic of why I think it is no RNG unless you make it have RNG. So, next note you might be looking for? Resistance, accuracy. So on the HH Gaming website here, they have the accuracy of each head listed. So let's take a look at, like, all right, Head of Mischief has 310 accuracy. So if you, we're on hard. So if you want to be able to resist the buff steal, you need at least 415 accuracy. This is a little bit more cut and dry, but this is not. The resistance, let's see, what's the highest for hard, for example? 190. Head of Suffering also has the most resistance, go figure. So 215 is how much accuracy you'll need to counteract the resistance. That's what these numbers are in yellow here. But this is what I mentioned. Sorry, I almost went backward. But the Head of Suffering is alive, adds 50 resistance to each head. So you need a little bit more accuracy. So when you're taking a look at this, you might see, I've seen some other people mention accuracy levels. They're too low. They're too low. Just consider the fact that the Head of Suffering is gonna show up more than likely, unless you're doing normal and it's not part of the starting rotation. Like now, you might have it never show up, but consider that it's going to show up and just assume to add 50 accuracy to whatever this number is by these resistances. So if you're worried about resisting, you're worried about landing debuffs on all these heads, just make sure you have enough accuracy here. So not 215, it's too low. Add 50 to that. Just play it safe. We're talking hard Hydra right here, for example. So just 265 or higher accuracy and you'll be good. Now, of course, if you're using Deliana, she does place a decreased resistance debuff on the heads, so that can come in handy so you don't need as high of accuracy. Just like a lot of champions, we try to use decrease accuracy debuffs to land on the head, so you don't need as high of resistance. So that really comes in handy trying to use the specific buffs. Now, also here on the optimizer, guys, I'm going to do this without loading in my team at the moment. I think it's funny. When I don't have the optimizer up, it just pulls randomly. But I wanted to show you guys a good place to start if you're trying to look at what champions are good for Hydra. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. Here's my roster. What do I do? This is actually a really, really helpful tool. So look at Hydra Rotation 4 hard. I gotta see the defense doesn't really matter. So just a team. So what you want to probably do is look at more recent stuff, because, or at least within the last 30 days, because there have been changes to Hydra, so the teams have been affected. So maybe the last 14 days, let's search by the best boss damage and apply. It's already applied. So here we go. Yep, it did apply, right? Yes, it did. So we're looking at hard. Look at this crazy damage, guys. Look at these Look at these. It's so good. We've got Deliana involved too. Cupidus, Venus. Whew, that's a fun combo. But you don't need a Duchess. You don't need a Krisk. Sometimes they make it more easy, for sure. But we're talking only hard Hydra here. And if you scroll, you're going to be looking at only what your champions on your team are if you have the optimizer actually turned on. I don't have mine on, so it's pulling other stuff as well. I don't have Wither. I don't have 2 Hanorok. It'd be really nice if I did, but yeah, you can kind of look at this and just compare what are other people doing. And if you have the premium version of the website, guys, this is so freaking cool. Ready for it? You can see everybody's masteries and stats and sets. This is so helpful for trying to learn to actually like figure out how to build your people. You got to start somewhere, and the reality is imitation, copying is where we start. It is, I know it is for most people. That's how we do, and that's fine. Start looking at other people's builds, try to get their stats, and then as you play Hydra, guys, manually play Hydra for the most part. It's very hard to do otherwise, at the higher levels at least. If you're having trouble in Hydra and you're not doing it on manual, that's probably why you're having a hard time on Hydra. But while you're working on the understanding and the mechanics of everything and how everything synergizes, look at what other people are doing. That's the best way to learn. When we're talking about the best champions to use for Hydra, we're talking about the champions that are going to fulfill a lot of roles. There's a reason everybody uses Krisk. He's super tanky, he's easy to build, he can be your mischief target because he has multiple skills that give him buffs only. Like, so here he places an increased defense on himself. This one he places a couple continuous heals, so he can be a mischief target, although I think it's a little tricky. You don't always need a mischief target though, which we'll talk about in other videos, but he also helps with provoking the Head of Decay. Again, he cannot be the only provoker for the Head of Decay, but he can be a supplemental one. But his A1 is an AoE decreased speed as well. Ally Protect to help keep everyone alive. Increased speed buff for all allies. This is such a good combination, guys. Increased speed and decreased speed on the same skills are so good. There's also, he has that shield, decreased attack, decreased defense. He just kind of does everything, which is why our other new friend Nekmothar is so good for Hydra too. He is insane. AoE, decreased attack on the A1. AoE on the A1 is amazing, guys. You can throw him in a taunting set and he can be the only provoker because he goes so often with his skills. It's just crazy. He has all these attack, he has a crit rate here. It fills the champion turn meter by 5% each time a debuff on an enemy is removed, transferred, or expires. So he has decreased speed, increased speed. Like, he's got some of the key things, and leech doesn't hurt, for a successful Hydra count. Plus his aura is the speed in all battles. He makes a really good booster with a Inquisitor Shamel on your team as well, to just make him just go constantly. And he can be a really fun champion. So that's just something to keep in mind. You're trying to find people that fulfill a lot of roles. Now, a non-legendary option that was one of our absolute favorites is Ugo. She's mentioned all the time for sake of Hydra because she does everything as well. I mean, she's just so good. She has a leech in her A1 that can help just landing that for sake of having another way to heal. It's also another buff to add on. Like, there's so many different synergies that we need to talk about regarding people. I'll give an example. Kantra, she always places provoke at the start of her turn on all the heads, which would only of course be the Head of Decay because you can't provoke the other heads. But Kantra needs to have multiple buffs, 5 buffs up before she'll do that. So just having variety of debuffs. Having a variety of debuffs on your team that you can throw on the Head of Decay to make sure Kantra's always provoking is really helpful. And this is where Ugo's like main value is. AoE decreased defense and block buffs. That's on a 3-turn cooldown. So if you put her in a reflex set, Relentless Skier, she's going to come back to that quite often, and it's actually quite easy. She also cleanses all heal reduction debuffs plus another debuff. And she has her passive that she revives. If she's the last one alive, she'll revive everybody. And she's just so much fun. This is such a good skill. You pair her with a debuff extender like Solus or Thylesia. That's going to come in handy, and she'll be able to keep this up the whole time. Or one of my favorite things to do, which is how one of my Ugos are built. Let me show you guys how one of my Ugos are built. Let's see here. Where is she? Haha. So I have Relentless Ugo with the refresh accessories. This is such a good combination because you have the refresh accessories have a chance to proc the cooldown reduction, and then or prevent the skill cooldown, I should say. And then, of course, Relentless gives them a chance to go again. It's just so good. And then I have, of course, the Mastery as well here. That gives another chance for that too. So just combining things like that is really, really helpful. And that's the kind of things you want to think about when you're creating your Hydra team. You want these people that have amazing utility. Like there's a reason the same people are used. Husk, he has an AoE smash, right? Big ol' smash. But also a Provoke as A1, so you can help deal with the Head of Decay. Geo, he has that interesting reflecting of damage back on the enemy, so makes him great against the Head of Wrath. He also has HP burn and weaken and steals buffs and an AoE A1 with decreased accuracy. Like people that have multiple strong utility for fighting these big bosses, that's what you're looking for. That is what you're looking for here. And that's what I also want to talk about in regards to what do I do though? Like how is this how do I deal with the RNG of the heads, right? How do I deal with it? Like what's gonna pop up? We know the starting rotation. I guess I can't click it here because my keys are used. Darn it. Let me get the site. All right. So when you're thinking about building your teams, right? 4 heads? No. It's 6 heads, guys. It's 6 heads. This is where my argument of Hydra is not about RNG. I mean, that's so funny. In my head, I've been saying that for so long, it just kind of comes out sometimes. If you guys watched my collab with Nub, he made the joke of like, oh, you beat us really bad in the faction games. And I'm like, it's fine. There's RNG involved. It is what it is. One bad run, blah, blah. But no. If you're able to build properly, which to be fair, we were building based with 1 faction, so we were pretty limited. But if you can set up your Hydra team properly and prepare for all 6 heads, there's no RNG. It's the same every single time. Doesn't matter the rotation, doesn't matter which heads pop up. I mean, yes, in some regard, a certain head may be your slight weakness and you may get less damage overall if that head keeps popping up. In my case, a lot of my teams don't deal with the Head of Torment actually right now because it's not been part of the starting rotation. So when I was building my main core Hydra team for Nightmare and Brutal, I actually was like, who cares about, I'm not using Shamel, it's fine. Shamel has 1 job. He can be okay. He actually you can get creative with Shamel and use him in some different ways to make him have more utility. But for the most part, I prefer to stick to Shamel as a Head of Torment guy, maybe for hard Hydra or normal. But when it comes to the higher levels, he doesn't bring enough to the table for me anymore. I want to be able to deal with everything. So when you're looking at, let's first, Head of Decay. Let's just do a quick overview. Head of Decay. You want to provoke it as much as possible. Have it provoke the whole time. That's why you Skull Lord Vargal, he can do that the whole time. He also brings more utility to the table than just provoking, all you War Chief fans out there. I get it, War Chief can keep it up the whole time, but that's all he can do. That's not enough. It's not enough. Unless you have OP champions in your lineup that can do a million things, which most people seem to do. Do you have Lady Kimmy? Do you have a Duchess? Do you have a Krisk? Do you have a Tuhanaruk? Probably. Probably, if you're using War Chief as well. So the Head of Blight places poisons. You can try to resist those poisons. You can try to block buffs. Ugo, all the people I've mentioned. There's so many people. Ugo, Umbral are okay for that. There are other champions as well, like the new champion Wuji. Try to have block buffs up so that he can't place the poison cloud in the first place, and having resistance to not get the poisons he throws at you. It's that's something you want to do. Head of Mischief, you don't want to get your buffs stolen. Boom, right? So you need resistance. And this is where the topic of mischief targeting comes into play. Mischief tanking, some people call it some different things. But I have a video with Nubkex, Nub Raids, on mischief targets, like who are the best for mischief targeting. And that whole strategy is based on the Head of Mischief steals all the buffs from whichever champion has the most buffs up at one time. So if you can prevent him from stealing buffs, the easiest way, honestly, not even a mischief target, the easiest way is just have block buffs up the whole time. If you can do that, you're gonna have even more success than worried about the stress of, oh no, my mischief target got eaten. Now what? It's a hot mess. I think the Head of Mischief is probably the worst head in this game for most people, but now because of through understanding and figuring out ways to prevent the steal of all those buffs and the spread of all those buffs. It's actually one of my favorites to have in the rotation because I know what it's going to do. It's not going to mess me up because I'm prepared for it. The Head of Wrath, of course. The Head of Wrath is the one that surprises most people. I remember the very first rotation of Hydra with the Head of Wrath. Oh my god, everyone was like, what the hell? We wiped instantly. Oh my god. It was so dramatic. Everyone was like, what? That head hit so hard. And it took a bit for us to kind of figure out how to deal with that. Having champions that reflect damage or have passives that reflect damage overall, I mean, that can be really helpful to make you add on damage because he hits so hard and does so much damage. You also want to have damage mitigation on your team, or a shield buff, ally protect, a revive on death, so you die, you come back up when he smashes. A lot of dealing with the Head of Wrath is about timing. So you can just look at it that way, right? This is rotation 4, that's all you want to worry about. Okay. But that's where RNG comes in. That is where RNG comes in. If you only deal with the 4 heads that are part of the starting rotation, and then the Head of Suffering comes up, the Head of Torment comes up, then what? RNG, oh, I got bad luck, the annoying head came up. You don't want to deal with that, right? You don't want to have to deal with that. So that's where people complain about RNG for Hydra. I myself was 100% guilty of this. I still actually do stand by my own statement of, I wish they didn't have 6 heads in a rotation. I wish it was just the 4. Because then it would actually be more fun to build a team just for these 4 heads, and then build a different team for the next rotation of 4 heads. Like, you would actually build different teams if we didn't have to build for all 6 teams. Like, it would actually affect our lineups a lot more, and I think provide more utility to some champions that we're not using anymore. Like, I stopped using Inquisitor Shamel. Like, that's crazy. He was like the OP, but because he's not, I need more for all the heads. So it's just not enough. So you can do the strategy of just focusing on the 4 heads if you don't have the champion pool to really be able to cover all your bases for fighting 6 heads. But if you can, plan for everything. Now, you can plan for things indirectly. Like I said, for Head of Mischief, you don't need a Mischief tank always, although it really does help. You don't need a Mischief target. It's okay. If you have block buffs in there the whole time, then no one's getting any buffs stolen. Or if you have at least block buffs up on the other heads, he can't spread them. If you have block buffs up, the Head of Blight can't do its job. Like, that is just such a useful thing. I mean, even Lydia, who has block buffs on one skill, like a single target hit, that can help keep it up a lot as well. Just as like a filler when it's falling off other heads. For me, some of my teams don't have anything to do with the Head of Torment because I'm not using Shamel. And the teams that are not with, I have one team with Duchess, but not all 3. So what do? I have Ugo, and I have a passive cleanse with Siphi. You could also have a Doom Priest in your team. Someone that is going to be able to remove the fears after they happen. So my strategy for dealing with the Head of Torment is an indirect strategy. So I don't really have the perfect champions for Hydra. I don't have Nekmothar or Krisk or Tuhanarok. Tuhanarok is Doom Priest on steroids. She's so freaking good. I really want one for Hydra. And I think at the end of the day, the way that my lineup worked best was just indirectly dealing with the Head of Torment. When it comes up, I'll be like, oh, stupid Head of Torment. But you have someone that can passively either prevent debuffs from being placed, or that can cleanse them as they happen. Like Ugo cleanses, I have her cycles around, she comes back. Siphi has her passive that has a chance not to get debuffed or cleanse it. Oh, I forgot the wording now. But there's a lot of ways to deal with some of these heads indirectly, and that's what you need to think about. So what I'm going to do really quick is I'm going to show you guys a quick list of buffs and debuffs that you need to be looking for as well when you're building your Hydra people, and then we're going to end here. The video's gotten a little long, sorry, I didn't want to ramble so long, but I just wanted you guys to stop and think. A lot of people complain again about the RNG of Hydra. It's only about RNG if you make it about RNG. That is my hot take. It is not an RNG game. As long as you prepare for it properly. And you're not going to be able to prepare for it properly until you take the time to educate yourself, build your champions, whatever, like learn the heads. A lot of people, like I said, I'm guilty too. I will just go in there and try to do it before I even have I even read all the skills of the damn heads. No, I just go right in. I'm so guilty of that. It's so true. But the other reality of Hydra not being RNG is maybe you're just not ready for it. Hydra unlocks a little bit too early for people. Honestly, it unlocks at what, like stay at level 30 or 40 or something crazy? 45? I don't remember, but it was too low. Like most of that, you cannot do Hydra at level 40. You probably can't even do Hydra at level 60. Maybe normal Hydra, sure, which you can just smash your way with, like, if you got lucky, you got like a Trunda in there and a Ninja, and just smash your way through, you can get some damage really quick. But for the most part, you really do need a stacked roster to be able to compete in high levels of Hydra. And the reason, before I get to this, the reason I say be ready to deal with 6 heads versus just 4, the higher level you get up with Hydra, the less likely the initial heads are going to pop up again. So if you're dealing with normal, it's pretty likely that you are going to have only 4 heads. So okay, for that current rotation, focus on just those 4 heads, and you might have to refresh and play the RNG game otherwise. But if you're even hard, brutal, nightmare, everything is going to start popping out with different heads more frequently depending on the higher level you are. So you really need to prepare for everything. And there's some very key buffs. I'm going to quickly go through all these. So Ally Protect is great for damage mitigation. Block damage can be paired great with the Head of Wrath. Both of these are great for dealing with the Head of Wrath. Just make sure that you have a Mischief target or block buffs in your team so they don't get stolen from the Head of Mischief. That's the one big thing with buffs. There's a lot of amazing buffs that you can really help your team survive, add damage mitigation, add speed, whatever. But if you don't be careful and they get stolen, that's where it's going to mess up everything. That was how my early Hydra days started. My biggest frustrations with Hydra was always the buffs going everywhere and trying to deal with removing them. Madame Sarah's Seer I was using constantly early on because there was just so many buffs flying everywhere and I wasn't dealing with them properly. The best way to deal with them is to not allow them to happen in the first place, and you'll be way less stressed out. So same thing, block debuffs. You can block some of the debuffs on some of the heads. I do discuss that in my articles and videos, so be sure to check that. Same thing, continuous heals, helpful for healing. Okay, more so helpful on people like Krisk or on, is it Oboro? Does she have that? I think. And Mashaled also make good mischief targets because they throw some extra buffs on themselves. And the healing doesn't hurt. Counterattack is awesome for a lot of the game, especially when you're dealing with people that have AoEs on their A1s, or you're doing an Inquisitor Shamel team with a Head of Torment out. But be careful, keep in mind that counterattacks are going to lead to you very quickly knocking out the Head of Wrath. So make sure you have some other survivability to be prepared for that. Valkyrie can be a great example of good use for survivability and still taking advantage of counterattacks because she's got a big fat shield, so she can help you survive the Head of Wrath if you are getting smacked because you are racking up that counter. Increased accuracy is probably not as needed for your team. It's not too hard to get the accuracy levels in Hydra. Resistance is a lot harder to deal with than accuracy. Increased attack is helpful if you want to attack people on your team. Just make sure they don't steal it. Again, all these buffs, make sure they don't steal it. That is the key. Increased speed and increased speed buff with a decreased speed debuff is such a good combination. I use Skull Vargal pretty fast on my team and then my Siphi has increased speed, and my Mother Sybil has decreased speed debuff. So if I can keep all those things rotating, my Skull Vargal goes twice to every round of the heads, so he's always able to keep up a provoke on Head of Decay 100% of the time, except when he gets that 3% resist. So that's something to keep in mind, especially for the end levels of Hydra. Those buffs you really want to look for. Reflect damage is great when you're dealing with big smacks like from the Head of Wrath. Revive on Death, again, Head of Wrath, trying to be able to survive a smash and pop back up and have a chance to heal again is nice. Unkillable, Strength, and all these are really good for just overall dealing with those big smashes. Perfect Val you need for dealing with the Head of Torment. Val does not count though, keep that in mind. It has to be Perfect Val. And then, yeah, increased crit damage, it's okay. Block buffs though, is one of the best debuffs for Hydra. Super, super, super strong. Block active skills doesn't matter. Let's see here. Decreased accuracy is awesome, so you don't have to make your resistances as high. This is so helpful. 25 or 50% decrease accuracy allows you to not have to build crazy resistance on all of your characters if you want to resist the poisons, the provokes, the whatever else that are happening and getting thrown at you. Decreased attack is very important for the Head of Wrath as well. You should make sure that's on your team if you know you're dealing with the Head of Wrath. Same thing, decreased defense and weaken, like every boss, every fight, we always want that decreased defense and weaken involved if we can, just to help you do more damage from all of your damage dealers. Freezes don't work. Poisons only sort of work, but they're okay. HP burn is very useful, especially when dealing with the Head of Blight. Poison clouds you cannot weak hit. Or you can't strong hit, normal hit, only weak hit if a poison cloud buff does go up, unless the character is under HP burn. But again, try to prevent that in the first place with using block buffs. If you don't have enough champions that do block buffs, then having someone like a Mordecai or a Geomancer that plays HP burn can be really helpful for your team. Hex is also needed sometimes, but not overall. I find myself never using any Hex champions, to be honest, although, have to be honest, if you have that Ruel Mithrala combo, that is strong for Hydra. Very strong. Hex you need to have on the Head of Mischief to be able to target it properly, but you can get around it, obviously. Just having some AoE smashers like Royal Guard or Husk that are doing your damage to take out your devoured champions. You don't necessarily need to be able to target the Head of Mischief directly and have Hex on it. It's not really worth taking out, unless it's someone as good as Mithrala that brings a lot of other utility to the battle. Poison sensitivity can help those poisons do more damage too. It's something to think about, using Lydia, throwing a poison sensitivity on a Head of Torment when you got Shamel in a toxic set. That's a good combination. There's just so much. And then yeah, provoking the Head of Decay, weaken. You can't fear the heads. And yeah. So I think that kind of gives a big overview. I know this was a little bit of longer of a video, but I really wanted to take the time to kind of just go over a quick overview of Hydra. What is the thought process? How do we think about building champions? And in future videos and for future articles on hellhades.com, we will be breaking down some strategies for dealing with specific rotations for those of you that are just focusing like normal or hard Hydra and trying to only worry about the current rotation or having a strong start with whatever the current rotation is. That's playing the RNG game. Just keep that in mind. I also plan to do some content regarding a deeper dive into breaking down some comps and some strong duos and why they are strong for Hydra. What combinations are amazing? What are some just great synergies that you should try to get on your teams? I've talked about them briefly throughout this, like Ugo with a debuff extender, for example. But we're going to break down a little bit more of that in the future, so stay tuned for more Hydra content. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you learned a lot from this video. If you haven't already taken the time to start doing lovely, lovely Hydra. It's actually, I find Hydra fun now, guys. Believe it or not, I find Hydra fun. Maybe once you get to the point where you're more comfortable doing Hydra, you will find Hydra fun too. But for now, I'll see you guys in the next video.